All right, so this is our Pre-E2.1, which is basic relations and functions. We're going to figure out how to determine if something is a function or relation based on how it looks. So, first thing we need to know is what is a relation, what is a function. A relation is basically any graph, okay, or any set of inputs and outputs. Okay, they don't always represent relations as graphs. Sometimes it's as ordered pairs. Sometimes it's as charts that represent any kind of inputs and outputs. Okay, and then a function is a special kind of relation. We'll just say special relation in which each input gets assigned exactly one output. Okay, or every x value has exactly one y value. Okay, is normally what we see. Sometimes they're not labeled x and y, so we're going to say input output. Each input gets assigned exactly one output. Now they could all be assigned the same output, but each one only has one specific output. Okay, and the way that we can check this visually, vertical line test, not the horizontal line test. I had a little typo there. We'll learn about the horizontal line test later on. But to check to see if something's a function, we do the vertical line test, which basically says if any vertical line drawn crosses the graph in more than one place, then the graph is not a function. Okay, so if I draw any vertical line on the graph anywhere, has to work for any vertical line. Okay, if I draw any vertical line and it hits the graph only once, then it's a function. But if it hits more than once, then it's not a function. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at some examples. These say determine if the following graphs and or ordered pairs represent a function or a relation. So on the first set, I'm going to look at the ordered pairs. And remember, on ordered pairs, these are my x's and these are my y's, right? X is our first value, y is our second value. Notice, out of all of our x's, okay, x's are my inputs and y's are my outputs. Whoops, making up my own words here. Y are my outputs. So I'm looking at all of my x's and making sure that each x goes to specifically one y. So really all I have to look for is, are there any x's repeated? Okay, and notice here I have an x that's -2 and an x that's -2. So if I have the same x, they better be going to the same y, because remember, each input can only have one output. And here notice -2 has an output of 3 and +2. So in other words, this is not a function. So not a function. Okay. So for this one, I'm just going to write relation. Okay. This is a relation. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at the graph to the right. If I look at the graph to the right, I don't want to write down every single ordered pair because notice it has arrows, so that means it keeps going and going and going. But the way that I can test to see if it's a function is I can draw a vertical line. If I draw any vertical line, notice here it's hitting once and twice. So if it hits more than once, then that means it is not a function. So I'm going to write up here, this fails the vertical line test. So not a function. Okay, which means that this one is also a relation. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the next set of ordered pairs, going down the sheet just a little bit. Here I have the ordered pairs -2, 3, 4, 3, 5, 2, and 2, 3. So remember, again, we're only looking at our inputs. So if I look at every single input here, are any of them repeated? None of them are repeated, right? They're all different numbers. I have -2, 4, 5, and 2. So since every single input has only one output, then we can say this is a function. Now, if you notice, some of them have the same output. That's completely fine. We don't care if they all have the same output. The only thing that we care about is they have exactly one output. In other words, -2 goes to only 3, 4 goes to only 3, 5 goes to only 2, and 2 goes to only 3. Doesn't matter that several of them go to 3 as long as they're only going to one number. So I'm just going to put here each input has one output. So that means that this is a function. All right, let's look at this next set of ordered pairs. I have 0, 0, -2, 3, 2, 0, 4, -1, and 0, 8. So again, I'm looking to see if I have any x values that go more than one place. So if you notice, I do have repeated x values. I have 0, 0, and 0, 8, which means that 0 is getting sent to 0 and 0 is getting mapped to 8. And 0 cannot go two places and be a function. So I'm going to put here 0 has an output of 0 and 8. So since there's an input that has more than one output, that means this is not a function, which means that it must be a relation. All right, so on this next graph, we're looking to see if it is a function or relation. Because it's a picture, all we have to do is the vertical line test. Notice if I start drawing a vertical line anywhere over here, oh, that's not a vertical line. Let's pretend that's straight for a minute. Okay, if I start drawing vertical lines here, notice they're only crossing at one point. So that's good. And same thing over here. If I draw any vertical line, right, it's only crossing at one point. So I'm going to go ahead and say over here that it passes the vertical line test, meaning it only hits at one point, which means that this one is a function. Okay. Let me see if I have some more. Nope, that's all my examples. So you should now be able to do your E2.1 worksheet, which you can either print off of My Math Lab, or notice if you scroll on down, if you print these notes, the worksheet that you would be printing is the same thing as pages 3 and 4 of these notes. Okay, so this will need to be scanned and emailed to me, faxed by the due date. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know.